So I want you to just walk with me in the theater of your imagination so that we can just kind of get a picture for what was happening here. And so as the officers and the chief warden discovered that Andy was no longer in his cell, everybody had this look of amaze and puzzlement. And then the warden discovered that there was a hole in the wall. And this was the shocking thing, because who would have ever imagined someone being able to chisel their way out of a prison that would take over 20 years to do? Very unconventional. But what Andy understood was this very concept: not to despise the day of small things. Now, why is that so important? Because Andy had a very small handheld chisel that took him nearly 20 years to chisel through this wall. That was the amazing part. But Andy understood that the efforts of a small chisel compounded over time would eventually free him. And this is what we have to understand: no matter how small or insignificant the results we may have, or how small or insignificant we think our life is, we have to understand that God specializes in the small things, in multiplying the small efforts that we produce. God multiplies. And so here, Andy understood the concept of small things and never despising his small accomplishments. Even though every day, every night, Andy would chip at this wall continually. And then in the day, he would take out the remaining dirt from the wall, handful at a time, and he would put it in his pocket. And when he got out to the yard, he would basically empty the dirt from the night before construction on the wall. This here was the amazing part why he never ever despised the day of the small efforts that he was achieving day by day. And so here we have to understand this very same concept when it comes to the spiritual life and how God operates. Remember, God specializes in multiplying the small things. So sometimes we have to make sure that we don't despise the very small things or insignificant things that we think are insignificant, because that's the very thing that God will use to bless you through. And so here, this movie teaches us something. It affirms a spiritual truth that we need to grasp and that we need to learn, that we should never ever despise the day of small things. Remember, God told us in Matthew chapter 17, verse 20. He said, all you need is the faith the size of a mustard seed. Now, we discussed this last week in part 1, but I just want to reiterate this fact that it don't take a whole lot of faith to move a mountain. Whatever mountain is in your way, it don't take a whole lot. So despise not the day of little things. Despise not the day of small things. Understand, God can use the small things that you have, that you may now consider insignificant or unimportant. But let's continue the journey and let's stay encouraged, because remember, God fed 5,000 people with only 2 fish. He specializes in multiplying your small results or the small things you have. So don't despise the day of small things.